morning. Thank you for everyone who is here this morning. Thank you for any of you who are tuning in online. We are glad to have everyone here today. And we are just going to take a few minutes to kind of get centered and bring all of our attention here to this moment and to the present where we are right now. So if you want, just settle into your chairs and get comfortable. If it feels good, go ahead and close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath in. And release. Take another nice deep breath in. And release. Bring all your thoughts to right here, right now. Release all your thoughts of the rest of the day, what might have happened this morning. Take another nice deep breath in. And release. Let your body relax. Feel your weight in the seat that supports you. Feel your feet on the floor. Bring your attention to your heartbeat. To your breath. It's in just a moment of gratitude for being here, for waking up this morning, for the amazing things that will be shared in this class. And we are so grateful, and so it is. Amen and amen. All right. So, the book that we're going to talk about today is What If Up? It's by, or What If It All Goes Right, by Mindy Odlin. We did this book, it's been years ago here at Unity, but it's been a long time ago. And I have to tell you, it's the process of this has been really interesting, trying to put this class together. Like I said, we did this book years ago here at Unity. And you know how sometimes Sue talks about how a talk feels like just birthing it. It's like it won't come together, or she's just struggles to try and get it to come together. That has been this. It has just been so interesting to stand back and watch this and try to allow this to unfold. I would sit down, and usually I can sit down and it might take me a few minutes to get it processed, and then it starts flowing, and I'm like, oh, this is good. This amazing thing in your life that is going to bring this joy that you never even dreamed was possible. And instead I've been like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. You know, it's like somebody that I know. It's like, oh my gosh, she's trying to do this, and does she realize it's never going to happen? That is not going to happen. I don't know why she thinks she's going to be able to do this. It's never going to happen. Look at what's happening in her life. Look at where she is. Never going to happen. And then 2 months later, somebody comes to me and goes, oh my gosh, did you hear about so-and-so? She did this, and she got this, and it was amazing, and it was brand new, and this is what happened. And I was like, oh my gosh. It was better than everything I was saying that she was not going to happen in her life. but what actually did happen was better, and I recognized that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look what's happening here. So the premise of what if it all goes right is that's what we catch ourselves and we find ourselves doing in life is she calls it what if downing. Oh my gosh, what if it fails? What if this happens? What if that happens? And it seems really simplistic, and I think that may be part of the reason why I was having such a hard time trying to put it together, was because it seems so simplistic. And the thing is, in most of the classes and most of the talks that you hear, we're not telling you anything you don't already know. These are things that you already know. These are things that are innate, some of them innately. You already know these things. Some of them that you've heard. But I heard in Al-Anon, I'm always saying, we're not, what is it? We're not slow learners. We're just fast forgetters. And so I think that's it. We're fast forgetters. So we go, that's why people go to Al-Anon meetings or AA meetings. They say the same things over and over and over in every meeting. They have the same mantras that they say. They go over the same readings every single time because it's in there somewhere, but it gets lost in all of the things of today and all of the things that are happening in life. So this class is just going to be a reminder of things that you already know. So what she says is that there are two words that hold within them the power to create and the power to destroy. They are two of the most powerful words in our English language, and we use them every day, whether we realize it or not. What if? We go through our day and we do that constantly. Give me some examples of things that you might what if during the day. Anything.
What if I hit every stoplight green and make it class on time?
What if, say that again.
What if I hit every stoplight green and make it to class on time?
Right.
Because they're traffic lights, not stoplights.
And it did, by the way.
Did it? Yeah.
I've heard that if you call them stoplights, they mean you're going to stop. But if you call them traffic lights, you change the whole. You change the whole thing around them.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah. Traffic lights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. So probably everyone has heard Einstein's theory that says we cannot solve our problems using the same level of thinking that created them, right? So we're going to talk about some things today of ways to reprogram your thoughts. And like I said, it seems really simplistic, but it's amazing how much that it works. So she says everything that we have was created with a thought. If you look around the room, the tables, the chairs you're sitting on, the building, your cell phones, the clothes that you wear, everything that is started with a thought. Someone had the thought, what is a table going to look like? We need something to sit things on. What's that going to look like? Everything started with a thought. The thing is, we justify our thoughts by pointing at reality and saying, but see, it's true. So the cycle perpetuates without end. So how many of us have been this person that or known someone who says, yeah, but look at what it is. It just is. You see, it just is. And then they look for ways to reinforce what it is that they think is happening. And they find it, exactly. So, unexamined, unconscious thoughts reflect an observed reality. So we are constantly having thoughts. You know, I love that Sue is going to do, what's the name of the book? She's going to do a series starting in September.
The Untethered Soul.
The Untethered Soul.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I know, isn't it? And
yeah.
what talks about, we have constant dialogue going on in our heads. And she says all the time, what are you thinking about when you're not thinking about what you're thinking about? I mean, and it's true. It's like you've got this constant dialogues going on in your head. You know, somebody walks up and you're like, oh my gosh, here she comes. What was her name? She told me 5 minutes ago what her name is. I can't remember her name. What is her name? And you're having this whole dialogue in your head the whole time. And how often are we having these dialogues in our heads, but we are completely unconscious. We're not even realizing what we're having these dialogues about. I catch myself all the time having a conversation in my head, and by golly, I do have to tell you though, the conversations that I have, if I'm having an argument in my head, I'm winning these arguments, the ones that are in my head, because I'm good at those. The thing is, the next thing I know, I'm mad. I'm having this whole conversation in my head, and I can feel it in my body. I am mad about this conversation that I'm having in my head because I'm going to say this, and then they're going to say that. Well, when they say that, boy, do I have something I'm going to say about that. And I can feel it. Anybody else have those moments? Yeah.
You don't break it on
We didn't, you know. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm taking a class online, and he tells you one of the exercises we're supposed to do is we're supposed to go out in public with someone and make up stories about people that go by. And he said, you know, the reason you go with somebody is so you can hear their stories and and they can hear yours, and you can become aware of the dialogues in your head and the stories that you create. So, you know, it's an exercise in mindfulness and awareness of what you actually are doing, and it begins to trigger you to be more aware. And I haven't found anybody that wants to go with me yet, but but that's one of the, you know, things is becoming aware. We all make things up.
Sure.
And there's no reality in half of the stuff that we make up.
Sure.
Yet.
Yeah. When you put a label on somebody, if you're sitting here and you put a label on somebody, you can watch them because your aura is bumping into their aura when you're doing that, and they can feel it and they react the way that you have labeled them, and it really makes you think about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know, I've told this story numerous times about working in a prison and going through the training, and you know, it's us against them, and having these constant conflicts with the inmates because, and you know, I would try to say something really nicely, and it felt like I was saying it really nicely, but what they were actually feeling from me was this contempt and this feeling of, you deserve to be here, and I'm here, and I'm above you, and I'm in charge, and they felt that. And so it was a constant conflict between myself and them until I recognized that bias that I had. You know, it goes to the biases that we have about all kinds of things in our lives. Yeah, John.
A similar exercise that I practiced quite a few years ago was the practice of noticing every non-judgmental statement that came into my mind for a day and counting them, and then we also as a group did it for a couple of hours. We had a person who did nothing but ring a bell every time somebody made a judgmental statement to heighten our awareness about anything, and by judgmental statement, it was any phrase that was an opinion that something was right or wrong or good or bad. And every time that we did that, we had to ring the bell and figure out what was it that we just said. And it just alters everything. It alters our emotional response, which is our guidance system. So,
Right, those feelings, right. So did you find that there was a lot of bell ringing in the beginning and then it gradually lessened?
Well, the group was not always the same people showing up all the time, so there was never a group where there was no bell.
I'll bet. Yeah, I'll bet. Okay, so unexamined, unconscious thoughts, all of those things you're thinking when you're not thinking about what you're thinking about, reflect an observed reality. So what you are seeing, what you feel is the actual reality. And that generates the feelings that cause us to act in ways that create and reinforce that old reality. And in the end, we smugly point to this new reality as evidence that our thoughts are correct all along. So I was in a relationship for 20 years, and it was not a good relationship, but by golly, my codependence was strong, and I was going to make her life better, and I was going to fix her and let her realize that she was good enough, and there was always that push-pull where she tried to push me away because she was afraid I was going to leave. And she would do things and push and push and push and push me away. And I was determined that I was not going to leave to show her that I loved her and she didn't need to push me anymore. Like I said, 20 years of that. And when I finally just said, I can't do this anymore. And she said, the first thing she said was, I always knew you'd leave. And I said, you don't get to say that, because I stayed for 20 years, so you don't get to say that. But it is, that's exactly what that is her actions of pushing me away. And then finally, that's what happened, was she pushed me away, and it's like, I can't do this anymore. And she said, I always knew that that's what was going to happen. So it's that circular thought pattern that we have. So Mindy says the process of awakening or becoming enlightened begins when we step outside of our unconscious cycle of creation and begin consciously examining and modifying our thoughts. Our life then becomes a laboratory of limitless creative possibilities. You begin to tap into the creative flow. And when you align with others who are similarly inspired, like you said, LB, then we multiply this creative power in a way that can truly change the world. You know, how many examples have we heard of things where something happened and a group of people or even animals acted a certain way and it completely changed the dynamic of what was happening around them. Okay. Let's see. One of the things that Brene Brown said that I thought was really good, she said, stop walking through the world looking for confirmation that you are not enough. You will always find it. Isn't that true? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so it says, what if carries the power to create and the power to destroy? It carries the key to inspiration. What if it works? And then it's the birthplace, and it is the birthplace of our greatest fear. What if it fails? What if I look like a fool? So the ability to use our imagination makes all the difference in the world in that what if. You know, Alice in Wonderland, Alice says, there's no use in trying. One can't believe impossible things. I dare say you haven't had much practice, said the Queen. When I was younger, I always did it for half an hour every day. Why, sometimes I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. How many things that are a reality that everybody thought was impossible at one time or another?
Lots.
The 3-minute mile. You know, nobody ever thought that was going to be possible.
It still isn't.
A 4-minute mile. Hasn't someone broken 4 minutes?
Yeah.
So it is a 3-minute mile. I mean,
No,
it's
well,
3
4
minutes
minute
and
mile is
something.
unbroken,
Yeah. What else? I mean, space travel, cell phones.
What's interesting is
Go ahead, John.
how people have decided that, you know, space travel really never happened. How space travel really never happened. We never went to the moon, the earth is flat, things like that.
So, of course, just yesterday at the Abraham meeting here in the morning, we were talking about this, and I was saying I just had this epiphany that imagination is just a thing I can't quite describe, that sounds like any big deal, but something changed big in me. I realized that everything that I'm thinking is me imaging something, whether it's good or bad, my fears. I had this thing I've been really struggling and dreading, and I'm like, oh, I'm imagining, just like you said, that conversation of how it's going to go. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, everything's my imagination, everything that's not like right now, just experiencing life as it's unfolding in this moment in front of me. In which case, if I'm here fully, I know exactly what, if I'm in tune and dedicated to righteousness, you feel a kind of a knowing what's the right thing in the moment. If your emotions, if your mental and emotional stories are running you off down the monkey path,
Right. And Mindy talks about that the difference in where you go when when you have that alignment, when you're centered, as opposed to when you're just out there, like you said, you got that monkey mind going on. So yeah, Dawn.
Abraham usually takes a position that we shouldn't take score so often. Where am I now? This is the way it always happens. This is the way I should have known it would happen. If we take the longer view, you can't tell what's happening by what's happening at the moment. You can't make a generalization about reality. It's let it happen, but don't be anxious about what direction it's going by judging this particular instance that you're experiencing right now.
Right.
It's not a big enough sample of reality.
Right. That's good. Yeah. It's not a big enough sample of reality. Yeah.
I think a big one, and I've noticed this, other people in my life too, is when you rephrase and say to yourself, "Why does this always happen to me?" That's a big one.
Yeah.
And I recently, is that better? I recently, this week, someone on Facebook had a flat tire or said something about, "Why does this always happen to me?" And like I noticed in my own life, I was having trouble with one tire having air. Like sometimes when it's really, really hot, it goes down a little bit. It likes to be weird. And I noticed, wow, I didn't say that to myself one time, and how, managing the mind is everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. In a nutshell, manage the mind, manage your life. And so it was just interesting because, it's what I love about our technology world. There's some negative to it, but the great thing about it is you can push a button on YouTube and have mindfulness right there, or have Abraham Hicks right there, or on your phone. And it really is true how much you program into yourself becomes you.
Sure, absolutely. And it's interesting too with why does this always happen to me? And I had a flat tire. And I love that my daughter Emily has had enough of unity and program to go, what if you had a flat tire because there was an accident down the road and you were going to be right in the middle of it if something hadn't happened and you were delayed, you were going to be right in the middle of that accident, or something else happened that, like you said, Don, it's that snapshot of reality, and it's not a big enough picture to know what would have happened in the future. Yeah, Elby.
I was listening to some answers on self-esteem yesterday, and they said, well, first of all, self-esteem is a mental realm. It has nothing to do with anything physical that's reality. It's all in your mind. And so it's learning, like Kat said, to control your mind. And one of the guys said that the thing that helps him is we all make comparisons, and that's a lot of our self-esteem. But if we start to make that comparison with who we are today, with who we were 10 years ago, it changes, and we can begin to build our self-esteem because we're looking at where we came from instead of everything out here, because we can only control what happens here.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look at where was I 10 years ago,
wow, yeah,
then we can make that comparison, and it builds our self-esteem instead of looking at somebody else,
mm-hmm.
because we don't know their path and they don't know ours.
And we have no idea between what they're showing the world and what's a reality in their lives. That social media has just enhanced that tremendously, because you see all of the wonderful vacations and the smiling faces. Emily's got an app on her phone that it dings, and it's a group of people that it's like, be real. And so when it dings, they're supposed to take a picture of themselves right there in that moment and share it. And she was doing that the other day. We just finished playing pickleball, and it was so hot, and both of our faces were just beet red, and we're just sweaty, and we're just yucky. And she's like, the phone dinged. And she's like, dang it. I said, what? And so she told me what was going on. And she's like, I'm not sure I want to be this real. And I was like, come on. And so I got in the picture with her, and she took a picture of us all nasty and sweaty to post. But you have no idea what the reality is in someone's life and what it is that they're showing and they're telling everyone else. And it's that vulnerability that Brene Brown talks about all the time. If we actually knew the reality of each other's lives, if we were able to be vulnerable and share what was really happening in our lives, how amazing would that connection be? Because how many times have you shared something and been vulnerable with somebody and they go, wow, me too. You know what? Yeah, I get that, because, man, I am right there with you. I felt that, but I sure wasn't going to say it. Like John said a while ago, yeah, but we don't brag about it, Yeah.
Another example of that longer view that you were talking about, LB, when Jeannie and I were on our honeymoon, I get these little word of the day things that come up. And what came up was Felix Culpa. and it's a Latin phrase which means an apparent error or disaster with happy consequences.
We've had those.
Say what the words are again.
Felix culpa.
Felix culpa.
Felix, Feliz in Spanish means happy.
Oh.
The Latin Felix is happy.
Culpa. Okay, so imagine a spiral that stems from an idea. When people, what if down, oh my gosh, what if I lose everything if I try to this new thing? What if it fails? What if people judge me? What if the timing's all wrong? What if I make a mistake? When they what if down, they take this seed of an idea and attach thoughts to that stem from lack, limitation, scarcity, and doubt. Like water draining from a bathtub, the idea weakens until it no longer sustains any interest or relevance. The more that constant what if, and the fact is, it always does. It stems from fear. How many of those things stem from fear? It all when you back it all the way up. I had a friend that she would say something, and I would say, okay, so if that happens, then what? Well, then if that happens, then this is going to happen. Okay, if that happens, then what? Well, such and such. Then what? And when you all bring it all the way back down, it's almost always, I'm afraid they're not going to like me. I'm afraid they're not going to love me. I'm afraid they're going to leave. It almost always comes right back to that vulnerability of I'm afraid, fill in the blank. Okay, so she says the old reality continues to create over and over as we move through time. But that old reality will continue to perpetuate as long as what if is being used in that downward spiral. The only way to improve the current reality is to change the question. And what if up uses the power of what if in a resourceful way. What if it's fun and easy? What if others join me? What if I make it happen? What if it works? Can you feel just a difference in that feeling when you start that? And so it's like you come up with this idea and it's like, oh, then you go, what if I bring my ideas to someone who can implement them? What if they invite me to be part of the process? What if this makes everyone's job easier and satisfying? What if this helps the company make more money? My wife, when I was leaving, she's like, you're going to be great. It's going to be awesome. She said, what if they give you a standing ovation at the end? What if there's somebody there that invites you to come and speak publicly, be a public speaker, and you get all these engagements to do public speaking? What if they want to pay you $1 million a year for that? And then it's here, but you get to travel whenever you want. Yeah, Kat. I'm like, yeah, what is all that?
This is reminding me from a message I saw yesterday with Michael Beckwith. Love him. Agape House, can never get enough. And he was talking about anger and frustrations. And, healthy anger is great. But he was talking about, I'm not going to scream loud, but he was talking about going, I am enough. I could, start screaming that instead of the anger and how it transforms you. So that
right.
You think of that. It would actually work. My dog was a little confused when I did it. I'm like, what did I do, Mommy? But it's kind of a cool, reverse psychology type thing.
Yeah.
She was. Baby.
Okay, so she says, pay attention to your thoughts as you move through your day, and how often are you what if downing, and how often are you what if upping. So when she talks about, just like you said, The thought elicits a feeling, and that feeling, paying attention to that feeling is what inspires us to take action or not, and that action determines reality. So
I'm going to share, like, what's going on in me is, oh, I'm talking too much, don't talk too much, so I'm enough. I'm not too much.
yes, thank you. Yes.
So my lifelong spiritual mentor, who's not in his body anymore, his given name was Pope Goodson. And he taught me that when you have any challenge or sticky thing in your life, to face it, embrace it, erase it. So he would ask, well, why does that bother me? And then when you get that answer, why does that bother me? And keep going. And it almost always comes down to, like you said, I'm not going to be loved, I'm going to die, I'm not going to have any money, something ridiculous, huge. And in Al-Anon, they used to always say, ask, what's the worst that could happen? And so if you take it to the worst of that, generally it's like, well, I myself am not afraid of dying, so that wasn't a big deal. And not being loved, I kind of really realized that I'm okay with me when I'm not with other people. I feel fine, so how bad could that be? So anyway, that's been very helpful to me. Face it, embrace it, erase it. With everything, I catch myself not feeling good about how it's going.
Nice. Yeah, Wendy.
So when you were just talking about we take action to make things happen, and it's one of my belief systems and concepts from studying metaphysics is that it actually is just the opposite. So the 5 principles of unity go: God is, I am, I ask, I pray, I act. And so in consciousness, and this is, of course, is a consciousness of who we really are, is what these 5 things are saying. So I go to a consciousness of understanding the power and nature of God. And then I go to understanding my relationship to that power and as that power. And then my desires in this moment as this physical being here expressing on earth. I have these desires, spoken, unspoken, whatever. And then my prayer is to allow my insides to match that. And then the action is a direct response to that. The action is not what gets it done. It's already done. The action is inspired from that. It's not the other way around. And any true action that we take outside of that is just to go back to number 1 and start focusing again on God and us. And so, I don't know, for me it's an important point, because I think that's one of the ways in metaphysics that I see it not working for people, is that action. They think that's where the power is, and it's not.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it is. I mean, it's like, it's all the prep work that happens before the action. That's where that action is. I mean, it's without all of this, then you're not getting that. So is that what you're saying?
The thought is the action
Yeah.
that starts the cascade.
Right.
It's kind of like saying that action is where the power is, and action is the effect
Yes.
of utilizing the power of thought and focus.
Right. She talks about the athletes, elite athletes, and they go through and they visualize what's the race that they're going to run, or the game that they're going to play, that free throw that they're going to shoot beforehand, and they go through all of the visualization before it ever happens. John McCain, the senator, talked about being a POW, and he said one of the things that kept him sane when he was a POW was that he would play golf on a specific golf course that he had played a lot, and he would golf all the time in his head and he would imagine this golf game and this amazing golf game. And it got better and better the more he imagined it, and he got super good. And then when he was finally came back to the States, he went and played golf and played the best hand of golf that he had ever played. And he had been a POW for years. Hadn't actually played golf for years. But that first game that he played was the best round of golf that he had played. Did I say hand of golf?
Yes, instead of a round of golf.
I knew that didn't sound right. Obviously, I don't play golf. But
In what Wendy was referring to, there's one of the Abraham Hooks books and tapes is The Art of Allowing. And it's that manifestation where you just get out of the way and let the universe.
And that's what she said, that action, to act or not. And sometimes that is the action, is to not act. So she tells a story about that said a long time ago, because she talks about quantum thinking and the science of focus. Once upon a time, not long ago, researchers constructed a robotic chicken programmed to move around a chicken coop. With a random computer-generated movement pattern, this feathered droid could be expected to meander through all the areas of the chicken coop equally. Based on statistical projections, you could anticipate that the chicken would turn left as often as it did right. But this was not just any robotic chicken. This gadget was imprinted on a flock of baby chicks. For these tiny babies, the robotic chicken became mama, and an interesting phenomenon began to occur. When placed outside the chicken's cage, Robo-Chicken was free to move in any direction. Researchers tracked and recorded each movement. Soon it became clear the robotic chicken, programmed for random movement, meandered toward the baby chicks 2.5 times more frequently than statistically expected. Sound like a fairy tale? They did like 80 more similar studies and projected and had the same exact results. A robotic chicken, it affected these baby chicks. So what she says is, imagine if this baby chicks can affect this robotic chicken. Imagine how much we can do in our thinking and how much effect that we have in the universe. So she says, when we look our lives through a scientific lens, we see that in a material sense, our body is a highly functioning community of about 60 trillion living cells. If we look closer at those cells, we see that they are actually made up of atoms. Those atoms, if we look closely, are made of subatomic particles. And those subatomic particles can express in one of two ways, as matter or as a wave. So all of our cells, that means that everything in the universe, including our bodies, at this very moment, are doing this dance of what is, they're an actual particle, or what could be a wave. All the time, constantly, our bodies are either potential, they're what's happening, or there's a potential going on in our own bodies. The fascinating thing that we've learned through quantum physics is that the determining factor between whether the subatomic particles express as a particle or a wave is focus. That's what makes all the difference in that one way or the other. When focus is directed, we see particles. When focus is removed, we see a wave of pure potential.
The observer effect.
Yes.
If we're observing it, it becomes matter. If we're not directly observing it, it goes to wave.
So using that concept in the world, if I focus on what is down, then I am turning the wave of potential of anything into the down outcome.
Right.
If I'm focused on what is up, then I am changing the wave of possibility into the up choice.
Exactly.
And that's what shows up.
Exactly. And it just shows us that our thoughts make a difference in the reality of what's happening in our world. Our thoughts make a difference in the reality of what's happening in our bodies, in the people around us. You know, it's like that whole thing of people feel what you're feeling. How many times have you watched someone with really big energy walked into a room, and depending on what they're feeling and what's happening with them, completely changed the dynamic of a room full of people. Yes, Mary.
I agree with that. Somebody coming into a room being able to change the energy, and that energy flows from one person to another, and to bring in the biology side of things. Just something I've read from Bruce Lipton, who connects science and mind and spirit all together, body, mind, spirit, is our subconscious and our conscious mind interact separately. And when our thoughts are running in our mind, we're thinking from our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind is, I forget the exact thing, but 40,000 times or something more active than our conscious mind. Mm-hmm. So if we can recognize the science of our conscious mind and how to bring that subconscious into the conscious mind, to recognize the thoughts that are coming to us and rationalize, use the logic of our conscious mind. And is this something that I want to continue thinking?
Right.
And make that choice for yourself.
Right.
Do I want to focus my energy on this progressive thing in my life, or do I want to focus it on what I'm not going to be able to do and the limitations that I have?
Yeah, and it's exactly that. A lot of it is, it's that focus. It's that allowing yourself to bring yourself into alignment and having that recognition of what am I thinking about? Because so much of it, and doing this, I so recognize so much how I have these thoughts. I'll be vacuuming the floor in the house. And like I said, having that whole conversation in my head and not even realize what I'm thinking about until I start feeling it in my body. And then I'm like, what in the world? Why am I feeling like this? And then I stop and realize what I've been thinking about, what thoughts are going on in my head, and go, okay, no wonder I feel like this. Yeah, John.
It's about intentionality. So the unconscious mind is unintentional manifestation. When we choose to focus, then it's intentional manifestation.
Right.
And that just is the difference. Do we choose to be intentional with what it is we want? Or do we just let it just go whatever hither and thither without any part of the decision making of
Right.
what we choose?
Right. You know, and it's like you were saying, Elby, about making up stories. My wife is really good about saying, because I have a tendency to just shut down, and I'm not a verbal processor. I process things in my head most of the time. She is a verbal processor. I mean, I know thoughts in her head that I don't really want to know sometimes. But I am not a verbal processor. And so I'll get really quiet because I'm going over something in my head. and she says, okay, I make up that I have done something and you're upset with me. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking about something that happened at work last night, and it was really stressful, and that's what's going on in my head. But just the fact that and then she's making up this whole story, like you said, and so Byron Katie. Byron Katie has a book, Loving What Is. And so in this book, Loving What Is, there's this whole process. This is way back here. There's this whole process that she does, and you go, is that true? And do you know absolutely that that's true? It's like, okay, so, Kevin is mad at me. And it's like, okay, is that true? Well, he sure seems like he's mad at me. Do you know absolutely that that's true? Well, no, I don't, because I don't know what's happening in Kevin's mind. Okay, so how do you feel? Who are you when you have that thought that Kevin's mad at me? Well, I feel terrible because I don't know what I did. I don't know why he's mad at me. I feel terrible. And then who would you be without that thought? If I weren't thinking Kevin's mad at me, how would I feel? I'd be fine, because Kevin's not mad at, I'm not thinking about Kevin being mad at me. So I feel fine. And then you flip it around, what if I'm mad at Kevin? Is that why I'm feeling, why I think he's mad at me is because there's something going on. What's going on with me that I'm having that thought? Yes, Wendy?
I've been studying metaphysics since '89, and there's a lot that I know about it. But knowing it and practicing it and living it is two different things. And in the practice aspect of it for us, you talk about this is pretty simple, but sometimes that is not so simple. But the one wonderful thing in the what if upping, the one wonderful thing in metaphysics when you understand it at a deeper level is that even if you never learn how to what up, even if you spend this whole life screwing up and doing nothing, every one of us are heading home. Every one of us are eternal. Every one of us are amazing. And to me, that's the greatest what if up. Is that a lot of times I don't have it within me to figure out what is the best way to think and what is in this situation. But I just go to who I am and who God is. And that relationship and life, and there's always up there.
Yeah. Very nice. All right. We are out of time. And I didn't get through a third of what but I love that, I absolutely love that. It's not my goal to get through everything that I have written down or everything that I wanted to do. It's to get that feedback, because that's my favorite part of things. Yeah, LB, real quick.
As an end note, something that is presented to me is gratitude is magic. It's absolutely magic. Because when you decide to be in gratitude and you start looking around the things you're grateful for, you can't be negative and be in gratitude. And so if you get into a situation where you're looking at down and everything is bad, if you can remember to look for something you're grateful for, it will magically transform you into something that's higher consciousness. And because this is a what if up, I had to share that because it will totally transform you. Gratitude is magic.
It is. You're right.
It's the emotion most related to allowing.
Yeah. All right, announcements, John.
So, the announcements are as follows. Next Monday at 6 p.m., the board will hold their monthly meeting. That's tomorrow. Guests are asked to arrive at 6:20 p.m. You do not have to be a member to attend. July 27th at 10 a.m. is the Unity Men's Spirit Group. Meetings include meditation, some poetry or music, and deep discussion and wonderful fellowship. It really is. Next Sunday at 9:15 a.m. in the New Thought World Religion Adult Sunday School class, Mary Hilsabeck-Huber will continue speaking about Mindy Alden's book, What If All Goes Right? And we'll get more of this. August 6th is our town hall meeting and potluck. The Reverend McClellan small group will be serving cake in honor of the marriage of John Brocker and Jeannie Kimber. In lieu of any gifts, John and Jeannie have asked for recipes for your favorite dishes that you are bringing to the potluck. For the month of August, we will collect children's shoes for Sammy's window. Back to school is soon, and every child wants a new pair of shoes. September and October, we will be collecting specific items each week for our cold weather shelter. Save the dates. This is so exciting. Stephanie Barton will hold the Angels Among Us workshop on Sunday, August 27th at 1:30 p.m. after church. And Daniel Namod will be here in concert on Saturday, September 30th at 7 p.m. Both of those, the workshop with Stephanie Barton and the Daniel Namod concert, has an admission fee of each event for $20.
All right. Again, thank you guys so much for all of the feedback and all of the amazing thoughts that you shared. That's what gets people really thinking about other things, and so I appreciate that.
And there's a love offering basket back there on the purple table.
And we're going to gather back in the back and